Welcome back. Today we're doing a deep dive into, well, a really gripping piece of ancient narrative.
We are. We're looking at chapter 9 in the book of Judges.
And it's quite the story. It's got ambition, betrayal, serious consequences.
Absolutely. It revolves around the family of Jerubbaal, you might know as Gideon, and the citizens of Shechem. It gets pretty dramatic.
Yeah, dramatic is putting it mildly. Some really memorable, almost sort of cinematic details in here, unexpected twists too.
Definitely. So the story picks up right after Jerubbaal, or Gideon, dies,
Yeah.
and his son, Abimelech, his mother, was actually from Shechem. He sees an opportunity.
Okay, so he heads straight to Shechem.
Exactly. Goes to talk to his mother's family, his uncles, that whole side of the family.
And he doesn't just show up for a chat, right? He's got a plan.
Oh, yeah. He gives them this very specific pitch to take to the leaders, the citizens of Shechem.
What's the pitch?
Basically, hey, ask everyone what's better. Having all 70 of Jerubbaal's sons ruling you, or just, one guy.
Framing it as a choice that clearly favors him. 70 versus 1.
Precisely. And then he really leans into the connection. He tells them to remind the people, remember, I am your own flesh and blood.
Playing the hometown card. Hard.
Totally. Leveraging that he's one of us feeling, that tribal loyalty.
And, does it work?
It does. The text says they were inclined to follow him because of it. Their reasoning was literally, he is our brother.
So, kinship wins out. They decide to back him. How do they, finance this?
Well, they give him 70 shekels of silver.
70 shekels. Interesting number, given the 70 brothers. And where does the money come from?
That's key. It comes from the temple of Baal-berith.
Their local god's temple. So they're investing religious resources into this political move.
It really ties their support for him to their whole identity there.
Yeah.
And what does Abimelech do with the silver? He doesn't raise a regular army. He hires what the text calls reckless adventurers.
Reckless adventurers. Sounds a bit like hired thugs, mercenaries.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Guys willing to do the dirty work, it seems. And their first job is, well, it's horrific.
This is the part about the brothers, isn't it?
Yes. Abimelech takes these guys to his father's house back in Ophrah. And there, he murders his 70 brothers.
All 70.
All 70. On one stone, the text says.
Yeah.
It's this image of utter ruthlessness, wiping out all potential rivals from his father's line in one go.
Just brutal, but didn't want to escape.
Right. Very important detail. The youngest son, Jotham, he manages to hide. He survives.
And his survival will matter later, I imagine.
It definitely will. But for now, with his brothers gone, Abimelech's path is clear. The citizens of Shechem and this other place, Beth Millo, they make him king.
Where does this happen?
Beside the great tree at the pillar in Shechem. A sort of formal coronation. He's used family ties, temple money, and mass murder to get power.
So Abimelech is king, but Jotham, the one who got away, he hears the news.
He does. And his reaction is pretty remarkable. He doesn't try to raise an army or anything like that.
What does he do?
He climbs Mount Gerizim. It overlooks the city of Shechem.
Okay, so he's got a vantage point.
Yeah, and he shouts down this message to the people of Shechem, calls for them to listen. And he even says, listen to me so that God may listen to you.
Powerful framing. And he doesn't just lecture them, right? He uses a story.
Exactly. He uses a parable, a story with a deeper meaning, maybe safer to speaking allegorically from a distance.
Right. The famous parable of the trees. How does it go again?
Okay, so he says the trees wanted a king. First, they go to the olive tree. Come and reign over us, they say.
And the olive tree.
The olive tree says basically, why would I give up my oil, which honors gods and people, just to wave back and forth over the other trees? It values its function, its produce.
Makes sense. So they try another tree.
Yep, the fig tree. Same offer.
Not
Be our
great.
king. And the fig tree says,
Pretty much the same thing. Should I give up my sweetness, my good fruit, just to hold sway over trees? Again, it prioritizes its contribution.
so the valuable trees aren't interested in ruling. Who's next?
To the vine.
Let me guess. Same answer. Should I give up my wine, which cheers gods and people, to hold sway over the trees? All the productive, valuable plants refuse the power.
Okay, so the olive, the fig, the vine all say no. Who's left?
The thorn bush.
The thorn bush. The prickly, useless one. What does it say?
Ah, this is where it gets interesting. The thorn bush says, okay, if you really want me as king, fine. Come and take refuge in my shade.
Wait, shade. From a thorn bush? That doesn't make any sense. It's an empty promise.
Exactly. It offers nothing of real value, no protection. But then it adds the threat. But if not, then let fire come out of the thorn bush and consume the cedars of Lebanon.
Wow. So this weak little bush is threatening to burn down the biggest, strongest trees. That's quite the image of leadership, isn't it? Arrogant, offering nothing but threats.
It's a powerful critique. Leadership that produces nothing but demands loyalty on pain of destruction.
So Jotham tells this story, then he brings it home, right?
Okay.
Applies it directly to the Shechemites.
Right to them. He shouts down, basically asking, did you act in good faith? Was this honorable towards my father, Jerubbaal, the man who fought for you, who risked his life, saving you from Midian?
He's contrasting his father's service with their actions now.
Yeah. He says, you rose up against my father's family, you murdered his 70 sons on one stone, and you made Abimelech king, the son of his slave girl. He really emphasizes that just because he's your relative.
He's calling out their betrayal, plain and simple, based on their flimsy reason.
And then he lays out the consequences. It's conditional. He says, look, if you acted honorably, then great. May you rejoice in Abimelech, and may he rejoice in you.
But he clearly doesn't think they did, so what's the alternative?
The curse. And it sounds just like the thorn bush's threat. But if not, let fire come out from Abimelech and consume you, citizens of Shechem.
Yeah.
And let fire come out from you and consume Abimelech.
Mutual destruction. He's predicting they'll destroy each other.
That's exactly the prophecy. Fire consuming both ways.
Uh.
After delivering this bombshell from the mountain, Jotham takes off. He flees to a place called Beer because, understandably, he's afraid of Abimelech.
He delivers the warning, the curse, and then he's gone from the narrative.
Yep. Sets the stage for what's to come.
And what does come next? How long does Abimelech's rule last?
He governs Israel for 3 years, and then things start to unravel.
How so?
The text puts it very directly. God sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the citizens of Shechem. And because of this, the Shechemites acted treacherously against Abimelech.
An evil spirit. So the narrative frames this breakdown as, like, divinely influenced.
It does, and it gives a reason. God did this specifically so that the crime against the 70 sons would be avenged on Abimelech and on the citizens of Shechem who helped him.
So it's payback time, according to the text. How does the treachery start?
The Shechemites start setting ambushes up on the hills around the city. They're robbing people passing by, which undermines Abimelech's authority and control. It's open defiance.
Okay, things are heating up. Then someone new enters the picture.
Yeah, a guy named Gaul, son of Ebed. He shows up with his brothers, moves into Shechem, and somehow he gains the people's trust. They start looking to him, maybe as an alternative leader.
Another potential rival for Abimelech.
Right. And the tension really explodes during a festival. They're at their god's temple, eating, drinking, and they start openly cursing Abimelech.
Not hiding their feelings anymore.
Not at all. And Gaul seizes the moment. He stands up and makes this big speech like, who does Abimelech think he is? And who are we, Shechem, that we should serve him? He even boasts, if I were in charge, I'd get rid of Abimelech.
That's bold. Does word get back to Abimelech?
It does. The city governor, Zebul, seems loyal to Abimelech. He hears Gaul's big talk, gets really angry, and secretly sends messengers to Abimelech.
Telling him what's going on.
Yeah, warning him about Gaul, the mood in the city, everything. And Zebul even gives Abimelech tactical advice.
What's the plan?
Zebul says, come tonight. Hide your troops in the fields around the city. Then, at sunrise, launch your attack.
A surprise attack. So Abimelech takes the advice.
He does. Marches by night, sets the ambush. Next morning, Gaul is hanging out at the city gate with Zebul.
Okay.
As Abimelech's troops start moving in, Gaul spots them.
Oh.
He says to Zebul, people are coming down from the mountains.
And what does Zebul say? He knows what's happening.
Yeah, Zebul plays dumb or maybe just mocks him. He says, oh, you're just seeing the shadows of the mountains.
But Gaul sees more troops, right? From another direction.
Right. He insists. And that's when Zebul turns on him. He says, so where's your big talk now? Huh. The guy who said, who is Abimelech that we should serve him? Aren't these the men you were making fun of? Go on out and fight them.
He basically calls Gaul out, forces his hand.
Exactly. Gaul's trapped by his own boasting. He has to lead the men of Shechem out to fight.
How does that battle go?
Not well for Shechem. Abimelech's forces beat them pretty badly. They chase them back towards the city gate. Lots of casualties.
So the rebellion is crushed, at least for the moment.
And Zebul uses the opportunity to drive Gaul and his brothers completely out of Shechem. They're gone. But Abimelech isn't finished with the city.
What else does he do?
The very next day, apparently some people from Shechem went out into the fields, maybe thinking it was safe now.
Abimelech hears about it.
Another ambush.
Yep. Attacks them in the fields. Then he launches a full-scale assault on the city itself.
And this time
he captures it. Kills the people inside. Destroys the city.
Total destruction. And isn't there something else he does? Something Symbolic?
Yes, the salt. He scatters salt all over the ruins of the city.
Why salt? What does that signify?
It's generally understood as an act to make the land barren, infertile. A curse, basically, ensuring nothing can grow there again, making its desolation permanent. It's an extreme statement.
Wow. Okay, so Shechem is destroyed. But some people survived the initial assault.
About 1,000, yeah. Men and women. They fled to the stronghold of the Temple of Elbereth. Wait, Elbereth. Is that the same temple as Balberith, where they got the silver for Abimelech in the first place?
It seems to be yes. The names are used interchangeably or refer to the same place. So, ironically, they seek refuge in the very temple whose resources help start this whole chain of events.
And Abimelech finds out they're there.
He does. And he goes up Mount Zalmon nearby, cuts down a load of branches with an axe, tells his men to do the same.
What are they doing with the branches?
They carry them down and pile them up against the walls of the temple stronghold where the 1,000 people are trapped inside.
Oh, no. I think I know where this is going.
Yeah. They set the wood on fire, the entire stronghold burns, everyone inside dies.
Another massacre. So the fire Jotham predicted, it came from Abimelech and consumed Shechem, just like he said.
Exactly as the curse foretold. A horrifying end for the Shechemites.
Is that the end of Abimelech's campaign?
Not quite. He then moves on to another town, Thebes, besieges it, captures the town.
And do the people there also flee to a tower?
They do. Same pattern. Everyone runs to a strong tower within the city, gets inside, locks the doors, and climbs up onto the roof.
So Abimelech approaches the tower, but planning to burn this one too.
That seems to be his plan. He gets close to the tower's entrance, ready to set it ablaze.
But this time is different.
This time is very different. Suddenly, the text says, a woman dropped an upper millstone on his head and cracked his skull.
A millstone, like for grinding grain, dropped by a woman from the tower roof?
Exactly that. A heavy domestic object wielded by an unnamed woman brings down the conquering warrior king. It's unexpected, almost ignominious from his perspective.
He must have known it was fatal.
He did, and his very last concern is his reputation.
What does he say?
He urgently calls his armor-bearer over and says, draw your sword and kill me, so that they can't say a woman killed him.
He's more worried about the shame of how he died than death itself?
It seems so. That specific shame was paramount to him in his final moments. The armor-bearer does as he's told, runs him through, and Abimelech dies.
And what happens then, with their leader gone?
The moment the Israelite soldiers with him see Abimelech is dead, they just disperse. They all go home. The whole campaign just dissolves.
Wow. So how does the narrative wrap all this up? Does it offer a final comment?
It offers a very clear theological conclusion. It says, thus God repaid the wickedness that Abimelech had done to his father by murdering his 70 brothers.
Directly linking his death to the initial crime.
Explicitly. And it adds, God also made the men of Shechem pay for all their wickedness.
So both sides got their comeuppance, according to the text.
Both sides. And then, just to make absolutely sure the point lands, it states, the curse of Jotham, son of Jerubbaal, came on them.
It circles right back to Jotham on the mountain. His words are presented as fulfilled prophecy, divine judgment working itself out through these violent events.
The whole cycle, the initial murder, the betrayal, the rebellion, the mutual destruction, is framed as the curse playing out, as divine justice being served.
What a story. It really covers the whole arc, doesn't it? From that ruthless grab for power.
Fueled by family ties and blood money.
Through rebellion, brutal warfare, city destruction.
Right up to Abimelech's own violent, almost anticlimactic end, and the explicit link back to the beginning.
And those images along the way are just so potent. 70 brothers on one stone.
The talking trees in the parable, the thorn bush offering deadly shade,
scattering salt on the ruins,
and that final millstone from the tower. They really make the narrative stick in your mind.
They absolutely do. It makes you wonder, reading this today, what does it make you think about?
Well, it definitely pushes you to consider cycles of violence, how one act can spiral.
And the consequences, right, how actions reverberate, sometimes across time or communities.
Yeah, and the whole theme of leadership, what makes a good leader versus, well, a thorn bush type. The contrast between producing value and just grasping for power.
It also presents this really interesting, sometimes uncomfortable interplay between human choices, ambition, betrayal, violence, and what the text describes as divine will or judgment working through those events.
It's a complex picture of cause, effect, and consequence, all wrapped in this ancient understanding of how the divine interacts with human affairs. It certainly leaves you with a lot to think about regarding accountability and the fallout from unchecked ambition.
Definitely food for thought there. Thanks for walking us through that intense chapter.
It's a powerful piece of the text, for sure.